Krishna, good morning everyone. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayandirayat Nashta Presha Mudreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatyuttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. So we'll continue our study of the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 2. The chapter is entitled The Activities of Maharaja Agnidra. Texts 18, 19, and 20. So, let's see. Oh, these don't have a meter. Okay. So I'll chant the first one alone, and we can chant number 20 responsibly. Sa chatatastasya vira yutapater buddhishila rupavayaha Shriyodaryena parakshipta manastena sahayutayuta parivatsaropalakshanam kalam jambudvipam patina bhoma swarga bhogan bhuje. Translation: attracted by the intelligence, learning, youth, beauty, and behavior, opulence and magnanimity of Agnidra, the king of Jambudvipa and master of all heroes, Purvachitti lived with him for many thousands of years and luxuriously enjoyed both worldly and heavenly happiness. So he's very attractive, this Agnidra Maharaj. Intelligent, learned, youthful, beautiful, behavior is good behavior, opulent, magnanimous. And he's the king of Jambudvip, the master of all heroes. What an amazing personality. So she was enjoying life with him. It's interesting, usually we think we have to go a higher planet to enjoy life on this scale, but she is descending from a higher planet to enjoy with him. So kings of this time, sometimes kings even on this planet or royal personalities can be so opulent and powerful. Purport: by the grace of Lord Brahma, King Agnidra and the heavenly girl Purvachitti found their union quite suitable. Thus they enjoyed worldly and heavenly happiness for many thousands of years. Text 19. Tasyam uhava atmajan saraja vara agnidro nabhi king purusha harivarshe lavrita ramyaka hiranmaya kurubhadrashva ketumala sangyan navaputran ajanayat. In the womb of Purvachitti, Maharaja Agnidra, the best of kings, begot 9 sons named Nabhi, King Purusha, Harivarsha, Ilavrita, Ramyaka, Hiranmaya, Kuru, Bhadrashva, and Ketumala. Text 20. It's on the board. Okay, so Sa Sutata Sutan Nava Anuvatsaram Grihe Eva Apahaya Purvachitti Bhuyaha Eva Ajam Devam upataste sasutvata sutan navanuvatsaram griha eva pahaya purvachittir bhuya evajam devam upataste.
Sasutvata sutan navanuvatsaram
Sasutvata sutan navanuvatsaram
griha eva pahaya purvachittir bhuya
griha eva pahaya purvachittir bhuya
evajam devam upataste.
evajam devam upataste. Others? Sasutvata sutan navanuvatsaram griha eva pahaya purvachittir bhuya evajam devam upataste. Anyone else? Okay, word for word meanings. Sa, she. Sutra, after giving birth to. Atha, thereafter. Sutan, sons. Nava, 9. Anuvatsaram, year after year. Grihe, at home. Eva, certainly. Apahaya, leading. Purvachittihi, purvachitti. Bhuyaha, again. Eva, certainly. Ajam, Lord Brahma. Devam, the demigod. Upataste, approached. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation: Purvachitti gave birth to these 9 sons, one each year, but after they grew up, she left them at home and again approached Lord Brahma to worship him. Purport: there are many instances in which Apsaras, heavenly angels, have descended to this earth by the order of a superior demigod like Lord Brahma or Lord Indra, have followed the demigod's order by marrying someone and giving birth to children, and have then returned to their celestial homes. For example, after Menaka, the celestial woman who had come to delude Vishwamitra Muni, gave birth to the child Shakuntala, she left both the child and her husband and returned to the heavenly planets. Purvachitti did not remain permanently with Maharaja Agnidra. After cooperating in his household affairs, she left Maharaja Agnidra and all 9 sons and returned to Brahma to worship him. Om Ajnana Timirandhasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupakadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Shri Utapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Tam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Cha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Mukham Bharati Vachalam Pangam Lamharite Yat kripatamaham vande shimuruditaranam Naham vipro nachanarapatir napi vaishona shudro Naham varni nachagrihapatir novanasto yutirva Kintu prodyan nikala paramananda purnam vritabde Gopi bhartu padagmanayor dasa dasa anudasaha Yasya deve parabhaktir yata deve tata guru tasyaite katita hyartha prakashante mahatmanaha. So I'll read the texts again. Attracted by the intelligence, learning, youth, beauty, behavior, opulence, and magnanimity of Agnidra, the king of Jambudvip and master of all heroes, Purvachitti lived with him for many thousands of years and luxuriously enjoyed both worldly and heavenly happiness. In the womb of Purvachitti, Maharaj Agnidra, the best of kings, begot 9 sons, named Nabhi, King Purusha, Harivarsha, Ilavrita, Ramika, Hiranmaya, Kuru, Bhadrashva, and Ketumala. Purvachitti gave birth to these 9 sons, one each year, but after they grew up, she left them at home and again approached Lord Brahma to worship him. So, we're very fortunate to hear the Srimad Bhagavatam, these true histories, true stories of great kings and sages, and learn from their lives and lessons. Just like we hear about our ancestors, or from our family members, we hear about our grandparents and what their lives were like. So in the same way, the Bhagavatam is connecting with Krishna's family. Achyuta Gotra, it's called. When a person becomes a devotee of Krishna, he becomes part of Achyuta Gotra, the family of Krishna. So we can very affectionately hear the messages of Srimad Bhagavatam with great, with the feeling of gratitude to all of the predecessors, our spiritual masters, to Shukadev Goswami, and we can be in this kind of mood, receiving the Bhagavatam with great care and attention. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used to hear verses of the Bhagavatam from Sarup Damodar Goswami, and Sarup Damodar is very expert in singing the verses, and he would sing them in such a poetic way, in such a beautiful expression. It would stir up transcendental emotions in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So the Bhagavatam has this potential to awaken wonderful transcendental experiences within our consciousness. Everyone's looking for newer experiences in life, wonderful excitement, tastes, visions, and smells. But as long as we search through the senses, we'll never be satisfied because it doesn't touch our real self, it doesn't touch our true identity. So the Bhagavatam helps to awaken a whole inner world of experience. And Mahaprabhu once he instructed Rupa Goswami to write literature explaining the mellows and the dynamics between Lord Krishna and his close associates and his friends and devotees. So he said, I want you to write on this transcendental subject using poetry. Because without poetry, without very beautiful poetic expression, there's no chance of engendering mellows, transcendental feelings. So he said, what is the use of a writer's pen or of a hunter's bow if it doesn't penetrate the heart and cause the head to spin? So we come from a line of wonderful transcendental poets. And the Srimad Bhagavatam Mahaprabhu has said that every single syllable, nana artha, every single syllable of the Bhagavatam has many different meanings and can be appreciated from many angles. Once Srila Prabhupada's Sanskrit editor, Nityananda Prabhu, was asking him, Prabhupada, you have so many books you'd like to translate, so what do you translate next after Bhagavatam and Chaitanya Charitamrita? And Prabhupada told him, I'll translate Bhagavad Gita next. Bhagavad Gita. He said, but Prabhupada, you've already done Bhagavad Gita. Prabhupada said, yes, but I can do many more. many more translations of Bhagavad Gita, comments. So there's so many ways to appreciate this, and as students of these books, of this knowledge, of this parampara, we just take exactly as it's being given to us by our masters, predecessors. So I thought it would be interesting here. We're hearing about Maharaj Agnidra and Purvachitti. And of course, Maharaj Agnidra, he was very enthusiastic to create progeny and to expand his dynasty, which is noble, but ultimately all of the activities recommended in the Vedas for human life, the pravritti is meant to lead ultimately to nivritti, to cessation of material activities and engagement in the cultivation of devotional service. So Krishna says, Vedaishi sarver aham eva vidyaha. All the Vedas are ultimately leading to knowledge of me, to relationship with me. So, there's one eventually should come to the point of leaving behind the affairs of material life. And we can see that there's this Prabhupada speaking about in today's purport that this has happened many times in the past, that a heavenly damsel or Apsara has been sent to this planet to connect with a particular king or mission for a particular purpose, and then she returns back to heaven. So they come here, but they don't become they don't stay here, they go back. And the example he gives is of Vishwamitra Muni. Her mission was a little different than Purvachitti. Purvachitti was sent by Brahma to bless Agnidra Maharaj with good progeny. Whereas Vishwamitra Muni, he was actually trying to elevate himself to the status of Brahmarshi. So he wanted to be a great rishi. There are, in the Vedic context, there are considered, I believe 24 very famous rishis who have understood the meaning of the Gayatri mantra, and he's one of them. So this Vishwamitra Muni was born as a Kshatriya. He was a great conqueror and a king. And then, I won't give the whole story, but circumstances happened that he realized that the power of knowledge and austerity is actually greater than the power of the Kshatriyas. So he wanted to become a Brahmana. To do so, he engaged in austerity and penance. And he was very determined, and Indra noted his very severe form of austerity, and he became worried. He became fearful that I have a competitor now. So he sent the Menaka, famous Apsara Menaka, who was very beautiful, very intelligent, she could seduce him. So she came, and by the sound of her ankle bells, it stirred in him some feeling, some emotion. And then when he saw her, he couldn't control himself, and he expressed his intentions to her, to enjoy with her. So it awakened in him, his lustful desires. And he eventually united with her. They were together for some years. They had a child, Shakuntala, famous child. She's one of the great heroines in history. And later he realized that I had been distracted. Now I want to again try to raise myself to the status of a Brahmarshi. So he again undertook austerities. This time, I believe he met Brahma. I can't remember. Brahma awarded him the title of Maharshi. But that wasn't enough. He wanted to go even higher, to Brahmarshis, levels of rishis, levels of sages. So he, as he was continuing this path, Indra again sent another heavenly lady. Her name was Ramba, I believe, Ramba. And she came and she tried to distract Vishwamitra Muni. Indra was sitting there in the form of a pigeon or some little bird nearby, cuckoo maybe. And Vishwamitra Muni, this time, he was able to control himself, his urges, and he focused on his meditation. But when he understood that she's here to distract him again, he became angry. And he actually gave in to that wrath. And he cursed her to become stone. So she was transformed into stone. And again, he realized he had fallen. He had lost the results of his austerity because he had instead of lust this time, he had given into anger. And ultimately he did succeed. He performed more austerities and was elevated. But we can compare this kind of thing with like, for example, in Haridas, no, let's look at Ajamil. So Ajamil was also a Brahmana. He was by birth a Brahmana. He was already elevated by his very birth. But he could not also keep his mind steady. Of course, he wasn't trying to do some severe austerity. But let's see if we can find here. This is in the 6th canto of the Bhagavatam. So coming up in the very beginning, we learn about the life of Ajamil when he was a young man. Let's see here. Shukadeva Goswami explains, since the living entity is associated with material nature, he's in an awkward position. But if in the human form of life he's taught how to associate with the Supreme Personality of Godhead or his devotee, this position can be overcome. In the beginning, this Brahmana named Ajamil studied all the Vedic literatures. He was a reservoir of good character, good conduct, and good qualities. Firmly established in executing all the Vedic injunctions, he was very mild and gentle, and he kept his mind and senses under control. Furthermore, he was always truthful. He knew how to chant the Vedic mantras, and he was also very pure. Ajamil was very respectful to his spiritual master, the fire god, guests, and the elderly members of his household. Indeed, he was free from false prestige. He was upright, benevolent to all living entities, and well-behaved. He would never speak nonsense or envy anyone. So it sounds like he's perfect, right? Ajamil sounds like if we meet someone with such qualities, we'll think they're very advanced. And he is advanced culturally and in his life as a Brahmin. He says, then he continues, once this Brahmin, Ajamil, following the order of his father, went to the forest to collect fruit, flowers, and 2 kinds of grass called samit and kusha. On the way home, he came upon a Shudra, a very lusty 4th-class man, who was shamelessly embracing and kissing a prostitute. The Shudra was smiling, singing, and enjoying as if this were proper behavior. Both the Shudra and the prostitute were drunk. The prostitute's eyes were rolling in intoxication, and her dress had become loose. Such was the condition in which Ajamila saw them. The Shudra, his arm decorated with turmeric powder, was embracing the prostitute. When Ajamila saw her, the dormant, lusty desires in his heart awakened, and in illusion, he fell under their control. As far as possible, he patiently tried to remember the instructions of the Shastras, not even to see a woman. With the help of this knowledge and his intellect, he tried to control his lusty desires, but because of the force of Cupid within his heart, he failed to control his mind. So, such a qualified person, and he couldn't control his mind in this circumstance. Krishna explains this in Bhagavad Gita also. Can anyone remember exactly what Krishna says? He was saying about this, even a learned man sometimes has troubles. Remember in the 2nd chapter? It says that even a very learned man or person who's making endeavors to control himself, he can be misled by even one of those senses if they're allowed to roam freely without restraint. So, but ultimately, right, like we can't control everything around us. We're not in control. So it's inevitable. I mean, my experience, my conviction is that it's inevitable that we will see, hear, come in contact with things that arouse whatever dormant lust, or anger, or greed, or envy is within us. There's many triggers that can do this. So, one thinks then, well, the solution is to seclude oneself and to do austere meditation and to control the senses, to withdraw the prana from the senses, to just go within and to exit the world, basically. But again, we look at the example of Vishwamitra Muni. Prabhupada gives it as a classic example how even very austere, advanced yogi will be challenged and ultimately will succumb to such desires. In the same way, this is a nice description here, in the same way that the sun and moon are eclipsed by a low planet, the Brahmana lost all his good sense. Taking advantage of this situation, he always thought of the prostitute, and within a short time he took her as a servant in his house and abandoned all the regulative principles of a Brahmin. Prabhupada says, unless one is very strong in knowledge, patience, and proper bodily, mental, and intellectual behavior, controlling one's lusty desires is extremely difficult. So it's interesting here, Prabhupada is saying that strength in knowledge, patience, behavior can help one control lusty desires. But still, it's extremely difficult, right? Thus, after seeing a man embracing a young woman and practically doing everything required for sex life, even a fully qualified Brahmin, as described above, could not control his lusty desires and restrain himself from pursuing them. Because of the force of materialistic life, to maintain self-control is extremely difficult unless one is specifically under the protection of the Supreme Personality of Godhead through devotional service. So Krishna gives hints about this also in Bhagavad Gita. You may remember from the 5th chapter, he's saying, Ehi sansparshaja bhoga dukkha yunaya evate adyantavanta kaunteya nateshu ramate buddha. An intelligent person does not take part in the sources of misery which are due to contact with the material senses. O son of Kunti, such pleasures have a beginning and an end, so the wise man does not delight in them. So the interesting word in this verse is dukkha yonaya. So there are sources of misery. We try to engage in enjoying some object of this world, and it gives pleasure, but in the end it creates misery. But I was thinking about this. Why is Krishna saying dukkha yonaya? Why is he saying the world has like all these traps? It's like a minefield, you know. If you walk through the minefield, if you step the wrong part, something comes up and explodes in your face, right? So it feels like, why would Krishna create a world like that? You know? And the fact is, this dukkha yoni, it only applies to a materialistic person. Because they're not actually sources of misery. It's a source of misery because of the way we approach it. But nothing in this world is actually a cause of our misery. I think somewhere in 11th canto it's analyzed that the real root problem of our difficulties is the mind, the uncontrolled mind. We all have the same problem. We're all struggling with the uncontrolled mind. Mana shashtani indriyani prakriti stani kashti. So that there's 5 senses and the central control is the mind. But Prabodhananda Saraswati Thakur, he says, Vishwam Purna Sukhayate. Krishna says, Dukkhalaya Mashashvatam. This world is temporary and full of miseries. But then Prabodhananda, our Acharya, he says, Vishwam Purna Sukhayate, the whole universe is full of happiness. How is that? Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, one who has taken shelter of the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Tam Eva Gaurastuma, and receives his mercy, this person has a transformation. His existence is purified. And by the mercy of Mahaprabhu, this whole world becomes a place of happiness. Because the devotee, his vision is changed. He actually sees that this is all opportunities to serve Krishna. Anasakta Sivishayan. Yatarham Payunjata. Nirbandha Krishna Sambandhe. Yuktam Vairagam Uchite. So he doesn't have this anymore vision of how to enjoy, exploit, I, me, and mine. He actually sees this is a way to serve Krishna, that is a way to serve Krishna. This person can do so much for Krishna. Let me see how I can engage others in Krishna's service. Let me see how Krishna can taste the wonderful nectar of this person's devotion. And this is the mood of the residents in the spiritual world. In the third canto, the description of Vaikuntha, the bees are all singing the glories of the Lord, the birds, the plants, everyone is glorifying the Supreme Lord in their own way. And when the bees are going to the flowers and they're buzzing, and they have these beautiful meditations and beautiful glorification of the Lord coming from the sound they create, they're glorifying Krishna, they're glorifying Narayan. Then the birds become quiet and they listen to the bees. But there's no envy. They see another's service, another's kirtan, and they think this should be for the pleasure of the Lord. They're serving so well. So that's also the mood in the temples. We want to, in our own service, we want to have this type of atmosphere. Shri Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Narayan Ki Jai. Shri Shri Gauranitai Ki Jai. This is what it means to have friendship amongst Vaishnavas. That usually when we're with equals, we want to see, okay, yeah, we're about the same level, right? But actually I'm a little bit better, so let me show. This is at least how my ego works. Let me show off a little bit, and prove that I can do something a little nicer. I can cook a little nicer, play the mridanga nicer, or do something. Dance a little more wonderfully. But actually, the proper mood to cultivate is let me engage, others. You lead, you sing, you do this, you speak for Krishna, you do something. You do so nicely. I would like to. And then when this type of kind of encouragement is there, then it becomes a very sweet, congenial atmosphere. So an intelligent person does not take part in sources of misery, which are due to contact with material senses. And then Krishna goes on to say in the next verse, he says, before giving up this present body, if one is able to tolerate the urges of material senses, check the force of desire and anger, he's well situated and is happy in this world. And he says, very nice verse here, one whose happiness is within, who is active and rejoices within, and whose aim is inward, is actually the perfect mystic, perfect yogi. He's liberated in the Supreme, and ultimately he attains the Supreme. Prabhupada says, unless one is able to relish happiness from within, how can one retire from external engagements and for deriving superficial happiness? So this is what our practice is leading us to. Vishwamitra Muni, glories to him, I admire his great determination and power. But still, it should be said that he may not have been at this stage, or being able to experience the wonderful joy within himself. And now we see Ajamil, very well cultured, perfect in behavior. We see Vishwamitra Muni, very strong, determined, powerful yogi. But even above the status of a great Brahmin or a yogi is a pure devotee. Though he may be very simple in his character. The example, the best example is Haridas Thakur. And bear with me, we're just going to hear a little bit about Haridas. You all know the story, but it's always good to refresh. He says, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami explains, there were two incidents when Haridas Thakur also came in contact with a prostitute. One was sent by Ramchandra, what was his name, Ramchandra Khan? And then by his chanting, she was, instead of seducing him, she herself was enchanted, and then she became a chanter of 2 or 3 lakhs, I think at least 2 lakhs of rounds every day. She became a very ecstatic Gaura Bhakta. Then again, another test came for Haridas. And this time, this time even more powerful lady had come. Hear about such incidents without putting forth dry arguments, for these incidents are beyond our material reasoning. One must believe in them with faith. One day Haridas Thakur was sitting in his cave reciting the holy name of the Lord very loudly. The night was full of moonlight, which made the waves of the Ganges look dazzling. All directions were clear and bright. Thus everyone who saw the beauty of the cave with the tulasi plant on a clean altar was astonished and satisfied at heart. At that time, in that beautiful scene, a woman appeared in the courtyard. The beauty of her body was so bright that it tinged the entire place with a yellow hue. The scent of her body perfumed all directions, and the tinkling of her ornaments startled the ear. After coming there, the woman offered obeisances to the tulsi plant, and after circumambulating the tulsi plant, she came to the door of the cave where Haridas Thakur was sitting. With folded hands, she offered obeisances at the lotus feet of Haridas Thakur. Sitting at the door, she then spoke in a very sweet voice. "My dear friend," she said, "you are the friend of the entire world. You are so beautiful and qualified. I have come here only for union with you. My dear sir, kindly accept me. Be merciful toward me, for it is a characteristic of all saintly persons to be kind toward the poor and fallen." After saying this, she began to manifest various postures, which even the greatest philosopher would lose his patience upon seeing. Haridas Thakur was immovable, for he was deeply determined. He began to speak to her, being very merciful toward her. This is a very interesting verse. Nirvikar Haridas Gambhira Ashai. He had very grave, very deep determination. Gambhira Ashai, right? There's that verse in Bhagavad Gita. Krishna explains that the yogi, transcendentalist, he's like the ocean. Right? The rivers are coming in, the rivers of desire, but he's not moved by those rivers. He remains still, like the ocean. So Haridas Thakur is certainly an ocean of Krishna consciousness, and so his attraction for Krishna went all the way deep within himself, and therefore he was not moved. He began to speak to her. He's always very merciful. This is the nature of a devotee. Always by nature very merciful. It's just it's like breathing. Just like we naturally do. No one has to say, "What are you doing today?" You never think, "Oh, I'm going to breathe today." It's just so automatic. So the devotee is naturally inclined to bring Krishna to the conditioned souls. He began to speak to her, being very merciful toward her. Sankyanam Sankirtan Emahayakya Mamye Tahate Dikshita Amihaya Pratidine. I've been initiated into a vow to perform a great sacrifice by chanting the holy name a certain number of times every day. As long as the vow to chant is unfulfilled, I do not desire anything else. When I finish my chanting, then I have an opportunity to do anything. Sit down at the door and hear the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. As soon as the chanting is finished, I shall satisfy you as you desire. After saying this, Haridas Thakur continued to chant the holy name of the Lord. Thus the woman sitting before him began to hear the chanting of the holy name, Sri Nam Shravana. In this way, as he chanted and chanted, the morning approached, And when the woman saw it was morning, she got up and left. For 3 days she approached Haridas Thakur in this way, exhibiting various feminine postures that would bewilder the mind of even Lord Brahma. Haridas Thakur was always absorbed in thoughts of Krishna and the holy name of Krishna. Therefore, the feminine poses the woman exhibited were just like crying in the forest. So this is the perfection of chanting. When we say Hare Krishna, it should actually, the idea is, okay, I can't explain from experience, but I've heard that one has association of Krishna through his qualities, through his transcendental rupa, his form, through his leelas. This all becomes manifest, and the devotee is able to go into a higher reality just by hearing the names Krishna. We should know that's the perfection of our chanting. The very syllables Hare Krishna will actually produce within us a wonderful transcendental experience of the spiritual reality. And Haridas Thakur was so absorbed in this way that the feminine poses the woman exhibited were just like crying in the forest. At the end of the night of the third day, the woman spoke to Haridas Thakur as follows. My dear sir, for 3 days you've cheated me by giving me false assurances. I see that throughout the entire day and night your chanting of the holy name is never finished. Haridas Thakur said, my dear friend, what can I do? I made a vow. How then can I give it up? After offering obeisance to Haridas Thakur, the woman said, I am the illusory energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I came here to test you. I have previously captivated the mind of even Lord Brahma. What to speak of others? Your mind alone have I failed to attract. Prabhupada says, from Brahma down to the insignificant ant, everyone is attracted by the illusory energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The demigods, human beings, animals, birds, beasts, trees, and plants are all attracted by sexual desire. That is the illusion of Maya. Everyone, whether man or woman, thinks that he is the enjoyer of the illusory energy. In this way, everyone is captivated and engaged in material activities. However, because Haridas Thakur was always thinking of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and was always busy satisfying the senses of the Lord, this process alone saved him from the captivation of Maya. This is practical proof of the strength of devotional service. Because of his full engagement in the service of the Lord, he could not be induced to enjoy Maya. So we might say, well, I'm not on the level of Haridas Thakur, where Maya will come and surrender to me. But Prabhupada assures us that if we take shelter of the holy name by executing our vow, by chanting 16 rounds to our best ability every day, and trying to keep ourselves always in contact with the transcendental vibration, then we will be protected. We might not be fully pure. There are still desires lodged within the heart. They're trying to come out. But by chanting the holy name, Krishna will protect us. And the special mercy of Mahaprabhu, if we serve the mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he also offers added protection. And just like the senses are compared to venomous serpents, but for the servants of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the fangs of the servants are removed. So even though our senses are in contact with the objects of this world, we won't have that poisonous effect. There won't be that mood of exploitation, of enjoyment. It'll gradually go away because we're protected. Prabhupada said that the most important instruction of the Guru is to keep chanting, to continue chanting in all circumstances, our 16 rounds. We can be sure, we should have faith that this will protect us, and even if there's difficulties, or sometimes even a fall down on the path, we'll be able to continue and make steady progress. This is, even Ajami, because he had contact with the holy name of Narayan, even though he had such a devastating fall down, it wasn't his end. At the end, he was brought back to sanity and given the chance to become a devotee. So he was saved by contact with the holy name. So what to speak of someone who's cultivating attraction for the holy name every day. So we're very blessed to have such a process and to have an example like Haridas Thakur to admire, to glorify, to pray to. And the Bhagavatam, I'll just give one last quote here and then we'll stop. The Bhagavatam, this is the instruction of the Kumara, Sanat Kumara to Maharaj Prithu in 4th canto. Yat pada pankaja halasha vilasa bhaktya karmashanam kratitam utkratayanti santa. Tadvanda riktamatayo yatayo viruddha sroto ganas tamaranam bhajavasudevam. The devotees who are always engaged in the service of the toes of the lotus feet of the Lord can very easily overcome hard-knotted desires for fruitive activities. Because this is very difficult, the non-devotees, the gyanis and yogis, although trying to stop the waves of sense gratification, cannot do so. Therefore you are advised to engage in the devotional service of Krishna, son of Vasudeva. There's a beautiful analogy given here to kind of illustrate this point. It may be argued that, okay, as long as one is unable to stop the desire for material enjoyment, there's no possibility of becoming liberated from the entanglement of material existence. It may be argued that the waves of a river are incessantly flowing and they cannot be stopped. But, we think, what's the point? I'm in the waves of the river. Every day I'm going and I'm feeling the pulling of these desires. But listen to this. The waves of the river flow towards the sea. When the tide, sometimes the tide comes up in the sea, so when the tide of the sea comes over the river, it overwhelms the flowing of the river and the river itself becomes overflooded. Then the waves from the sea become more prominent than the waves from the river. So this happens, you see, even there's sometimes tsunami really overcomes everything. So similarly, a devotee with intelligence plans so many things for the service of the Lord in Krishna consciousness that stagnant material desires become overflooded by the desire to serve the Lord. Stagnant material desires become overflooded by the desire to serve the Lord. So this is a hint for us to be planning. Planning what? So many different ways of serving Krishna. Making plans. So many ways that we can serve. We can serve the deities. We can serve the mission. Serve the other devotees. We can, there's so many things actually. The mission Prabhupada has given us is so broad. Whatever talent or skill or inclination we have can be engaged and expanded more and more. Cooking, artwork, teaching, music, everything's here. So planning how to engage ourselves and others in the service. This will overwhelm the flow of material desire. This is our process. Thank you very much for your patience and attention. Would anyone like to ask any questions or make any comments at this point? Yes, Mother.
Thank you for your beautiful class. I wanted to, I forgot which Rishi or Muni was under the water meditating when he got bewildered.
I think it was Sobhari Muni.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I was trying to remember, which damsel from the heavenly planet came down to, and then I remember this one, and I remember also how comes that the Mother Ganga became the mother of Bhishma Dev.
How did she become the mother of Bhishma Dev?
Yeah, what happened that,
This is explained in Mahabharata. I can't remember.
Yeah.
Sorry. Does anyone know?
No. Okay, I was
Okay,
just wondering how it happened, because she also came down.
Yeah. She had 9 sons, I think, 8 or 9 sons, wasn't it? Then he was spared because the father couldn't bear to see any more sons. She kept throwing him into the river.
Yes.
But he said no, because he had made a promise that he won't counter anything she does.
Yes, yes.
She'll always be obedient to her wishes. But then he said, no, you can't do this. I need this son. And then so she left him after that. Yes.
But how he came to marry her, this is...
Yeah, we'll have to look into it.
Yeah, thank you.
Anything else? Yes.
Thank you very much for your lecture. You were mentioning the point that there are actually no sources of miseries in this material world, and only our mind is, or the way we approach things are actually the cause of our miseries. Can you maybe elaborate on that and make us more conscious about this point, that actually there is no source of miseries, but everything is in us that causes us pain?
Yeah, we sing every day, or we chant every day the Shikshashtakam prayers. So, rather, it's actually mood of Srimati Radharani, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is praying to that no matter what happens to me in my life, Krishna will always remain my worshipful Lord and Master. This is echoed in the Bhagavatam, Tatenu kampam sushamikshamana dunjana evatm kritam pakam Shridvaga purvir vidadan namaste jiveta yamukti pades mayavak. So he told this verse to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, and this is Prabhupada says the devotee should live by this verse. This should be the motto of our life, that when difficulties come in my life, reverses happen, we should know for sure that this is reduced to just a token amount because of my past sinful activities, because we don't know what we've done in the past. And therefore, the devotee is continuing to offer obeisances and glorification of Krishna even through difficulties. So if I, walking out the door, and I hit my head on the arch here, and some people will start cursing, saying bad words, and then blaming somebody, why did he put it there? But the devotee, you see, you might notice, the devotee, if he hits his head like this, he'll say, oh Krishna, thank you Krishna. I needed this. Thank you for reminding me that I'm a rascal and I need to be reformed and come back home and serve you. Right? So that's a totally different mood. So the devotee is like that. He sees, and that's kind of like how we can, see that the world is not really a place of misery. It's a place of correction. So that in this way, then one's desire to enjoy the material energy, it goes down, and everything can be used in a therapeutic way. To heal. Even like in Ayurveda, it's said that there are, even a poisonous thing, if you apply it properly, it can actually heal someone, some condition. So we can just that's like just a meditation that we can have, just to see that all the objects of this world have some use in Krishna's service. And if I don't see it, then maybe I'm not ready to engage in that way, but that nothing is created here just to cause us misery, but it's actually created to help us go home, to help us go back to our original position. So some thoughts. Would you like to add anything else? Anyone have any other things about this point? I hope that's okay. Does that help?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So I think we've gone over time a little bit, so we can stop here. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Vancha Kalpatarvasya, Kripa Sindhu Vacha, Patitana Bhavanabhyo Vaishnavabhyo Namo Namaha.
Krishna, Radha Krishna, Krishna, Radha Krishna, Namo Vishnu, Padaya Krishna, Krishna, Radha Bhakti, Krishna, Swami, Vishnu, Padaya Krishna, Krishna, Radha Swami, Krishna, Swami, Krishna,